So do you think then, as long as we have pleasure, that justifies harming animals?
Yes, there is.
Ouch, you got me there.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Faraz.
My name is Faraz.
I'm Brian, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What do you study?
Psychology.
Awesome. So I guess the question that we have today is animals are here and they deserve to be abused. What do you think about that?
Completely against that.
So you think that animals shouldn't be abused?
That's correct, yes.
I argue there are justifications that allow us to abuse animals. What do you think about that?
What are those justifications?
For instance, if we get pleasure out of like harming an animal, if it's convenience, sometimes it's a cultural thing, right? Some cultures just practice things that are cultural, and then throughout those events, they actually hurt animals. So I think that's justified in cases like that. What do you think?
I mean, I agree, but I guess they do call it like animal abuse, but I don't think all animals should be abused, though. I mean, I do agree, like, because like me personally, I eat food, right? I love eating meat, so yeah, you are killing and abusing animals, sure, obviously, right? But I feel like, hey, what about, is that, like, you're talking like animals? Animals, technically humans are animals too. Or you're talking about animals in general?
So you're making a very good point.
Right,
Humans
right.
are actually animals, but I think our species is just like better than every other species. So that should give us the right to do whatever we want to dogs, cows, fish, chicken. And if we get pleasure out of harming them, I think that's justified.
I mean, what pleasure do you get out of it, though?
Sensory pleasure.
Sensory pleasure. Okay. Like, for example?
For instance, if I kick a dog and I get pleasure, if I, for instance, like eat a dog, eat a cow, if I get any kind of pleasure from like harming an animal, I think that's justified.
I get the part about being justified for eating an animal, but I mean, for example, if I was walking around and I saw a dog, I wouldn't want to kick it for pleasure. I feel like there's other ways to receive pleasure. I get that, like, to each their own, right? But I feel like if an animal, let's say for example a squirrel was like right in front of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to kick that for pleasure or like mess with it? I mean, it's kind of like mind its own business, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's your own personal pleasure, but I get that, but I mean, I don't know.
So what about other animals who are minding their own business? For instance, you know, a cow, a chicken, a dog. So they're living their lives as well, right? So what do you think about like getting pleasure out of harming those animals?
Well, I mean, I eat that, so it's my food. Yes, I get pleasure from eating that. So yes.
So do you think then, as long as we have pleasure, that justifies harming animals?
Yes, there is.
Ouch, you got me there. Okay.
No, I really appreciate the honesty, right? So I stopped torturing you because I'm against animal abuse. But the whole point of this conversation is to show that when we decide to eat animals, it's a personal choice. And this personal choice causes suffering to other animals. So now we want to really talk about why do we do that. So you mentioned food, right? As long as it's for food. But the key here is that to recognize that the reason we do that is generally convenience, culture, taste. And I don't think any of those reasons is a good reason to hurt an animal. What do you think?
I don't know, I've been eating meat my entire life. So I mean, all my favorite foods with meat. It's just like, I've tried not, but just like, I know there's like different like options available. I know they're trying to do like the Impossible Burger, anything made in a lab right now, but I feel like it's just, a lot of that stuff's so expensive right now. It's like, it doesn't taste the same. I thought about it, but I feel like, does it justify? It's kind of like, thing is like if you have a wound, right? If you have like a cut on your arm, you put a Band-Aid on it. Yeah, it goes away for a little bit. It's the same thing with like meat is just so part of our, just like, not just American like culture, but it's the world culture. It's like, I mean, we know like every hour in the Amazon rainforest, it's like one large football field is like cut down for deforestation every single hour. I mean, the amount of like, et cetera, go on and on about all like climate, et cetera. Just like, there's like a justification. I mean, I'm just like part of the process. I mean, like, yeah, so.
So I think the change actually starts from when we are honest and we appreciate that, acknowledge that we are a part of this process, right? So just to understand that your points, I think you mentioned taste and you mentioned that a part of culture. Do you think taste and pleasure or culture by themselves justify hurting animals?
Yes, I mean, I think as like an American, one of our ideals is being selfish. So like you mentioned like selfish pleasure, right? So like, hey, if I get pleasure from eating my favorite food, right? And along the line, was there an animal abused or not? Probably was abused, right? I think I learned like 98% of like animal abuse comes from like eating. So it comes the whole process of like there's cows, right? And they're like killed, right?
Yeah.
And then like chickens, goats, pigs, etc. I mean, that came from New Orleans. They talk about raising alligators for eating. I mean, if you go like Southeast Asia, it's all about raising like dogs and cats, and you kill them, right? It's like, is there pleasure? Yeah. Do I understand the process? Do I want to change it? I mean, I'm just only part of the process, and I enjoy it. Do I enjoy abusing the animal directly? No. But I do understand that eating will be a form of abuse, yes. So, yeah.
So do you think pleasure, sensory pleasure, so you said, is there any reason for me to go kick a squirrel, right?
Right.
The pleasure that I get is a sensory pleasure, right?
Okay.
What is taste? Taste is sensory pleasure in your mouth.
Correct.
So in a way, they're the same thing, except that one happens in your mouth, one is like a psychological pleasure that a sadist gets from kicking a dog or a squirrel. So do you think getting pleasure justifies harming animals? Yes or no?
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, with everything you said, I would say, if it's feeling personal gain, yes.
What is a personal gain here?
I mean, if we're talking about like, you said sensory pleasure, right? Like you get it, like you feel happy, you feel satisfied, you feel like this makes me, like I enjoy this.
How would you refine your answer if you put yourself in place of animals?
Well, if I was in that place, I feel like, for example, like if you're like, I think of like ants, right? It's like people who like step on ants. I mean, like they look like, they feel like, oh yeah, I'm the big man here. I can just step on these ant piles, and well, if I was in that perspective, I feel like I'm just being bullied and they're killing me. If I was in place of something that I would eat, I guess I haven't thought about that, but I probably would think about, well, they probably would enjoy being killed, obviously, and inside my food lens, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm still a selfish person. Yeah, so.
Do you like to be a selfish person?
Yeah, it's one of the American qualities. I think one of the big things is this I've learned is like you gotta acknowledge your faults. And one of the faults about being American is that, hey, we are very selfish. We only think about ourselves. I think very individualistic. We only think about, hey, like if, let's say for example, you're walking at night and then someone calls for you to help. Are you gonna help them? I mean, maybe, maybe not. But then it's very like, we're very individualistic. So of course, being selfish and like pleasure, self-pleasure, right? Psychology, I've learned about this pleasure, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pain, etc., whatever. We talk all day about that. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I acknowledge it as part of me.
So you mentioned American culture several times. So I'm an immigrant. The reason that I immigrated to the United States is that my home country, Iran, I didn't have any freedom. I would have been in jail for who I am. I'm gay, the culture is like homophobic. Not Iranian people, but the government, the rules, right? There is no freedom of speech. So for many reasons. So when we talk about American culture, there is a lot of good things about it, and there is, of course, like any other culture, there is some bad things about it. I'm wondering if you are selectively choose the more negative things rather than positive aspects of culture. So a prime example of that, with the same American culture, can you think of other things that we did in the past that were pretty like screwed up, and today we regret that we were like that, and we moved on, we morally advanced? Can you think of other things?
First thing comes to mind is slavery.
You said it, right?
Yeah.
So if you went back, like a thought experiment, if you went back 200, 300 years ago when slavery was legal and normal, everyone said, oh, this is a part of culture, we've been doing it for many years. With what you know about racism, would you say the same thing that, oh, I guess I'm just being selfish, I'm not gonna do something, or you rather do the right thing and speak up for people who are being abused and discriminated against? Which side of history would you rather be?
I guess for that sake, I'd be going like, hey, I'm going against that system. But it's just like, I feel like it's just like been like so brainwashed since birth. I've just been so brainwashed since birth. I mean, my favorite foods has meat in it. I thought about it's come to my mind, but like problems like, cause I'll go if like, for example, if I take like, I know that because meat is like super cheap, that's why it's so well produced, right? From like whatever part of the cow, whatever, like, right? Like you think hot dogs, Spam, all those like that crap. I mean, if it was possible to find a meat substitute that tastes the same, was cost efficient. Because like if I take a burger, if I go to like, let's say, Whataburger right now, In-N-Out, that costs me $3.
So sorry to interrupt. We are talking about different things, and I want to like answer each one.
Sorry.
So you mentioned cost. According to a study from Oxford, actually, like plant-based diet is 33%, about 30% cheaper, right? So the cheapest and healthiest foods in the world are actually like rice, legume, pasta, fruits, vegetables, right? So cost is really not an issue, but even if it was, do you think it costs more for you to be vegan, or do you think it costs more for an animal to lose their life?
Oh, so the cost of monetary versus cost of the life.
Honestly, you don't have to answer that, but just a fresh perspective, right?
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the taste, right? So I grew up like eating meat. So I love the fact that you mentioned that it's like brainwashing, because I grew up, I didn't want to hurt animals, but I was brainwashed to do it. And by the time I wanted to change, just like yourself, I found it very difficult because it was like a habit at that point, right? But when I saw what was happening to animals, the question became, does a momentary pleasure in my mouth justify an animal who has to be exploited for their entire life and lose their lives over it, just for me to have a moment of pleasure, right? To me, the answer was no. What about you? And I changed, right? So it was a habit. So none of us here, we are all vegan, right? None of us was born vegan. We were all where you are today. But at some point, we just saw the truth. And the first step to actually acknowledge that there is a problem, that you are being selfish, right? So would you say your values are not to harm animals?
Correct.
So, and then we agree that with your actions, you are causing that extra suffering, right?
Right.
What do you call a person whose actions and values are not aligned?
Actions not aligned. I would say hypocrite. I have one, yeah.
That's a word, right?
Yeah.
So before going vegan, we are just hypocrites, and that's okay if you don't know what's happening to animals. But the moments that you know, the moment that you have the realization that you just had today, would you agree that it's on us to do the right thing?
That is correct, yes.
So now that you know that, what are you going to do about it?
Still the same thing.
So continue abusing animals?
Correct.
Why is that?
I don't know, same thing. I mean, it's like...
So let me give you an example. If you were in place of those animals, right? And I was debating someone else who was abusing you, and I was trying to help you, I was trying to defend you. What would you rather that person who was sitting in your place say?
To help.
Are you gonna help them? What do you think stops you from going vegan?
Honestly, I don't know.
I appreciate that, you know?
Okay, I do have something.
Okay.
So, one of my friends, I don't know if we're friends anymore, but she said she's like, I guess I'm still in the dorm, so like, I've seen like the food they have. I mean, if you look at like what they have, the meats, it's always the same. Like they have chicken, pork, and beef. And I'm looking at other options. And my friend's telling me, she's like, I have a couple friends like vegan, vegetarian, etc. Right? Or they avoid meat for religious purposes, right? Or beef. And it's like they tell them like really not much to eat. And I'm like, what can you eat in the dining hall? That's like, well, it's like I see they have like a lot of salads and pasta. And I know that UT is trying to incorporate more and more meat substitutes, but just like there's not much of that going on. So in general, it's a systemic problem. Like it's just, I know they say start with one person. It's just like, as much as if I want to help them out, I still gotta think about myself too. Same that being selfish. And so like if I'm going down here when I want to eat food, if I see like rice or salad options, right, or sweets, and I'm like, and I see all that, so I know there's all like the nutrition diets, obviously. And it's just like, I feel like with meat, there's like more options available for me.
Sure, I get that, fully get that. So first of all, I want to say that we are with Allied Scholars for Animal Protection, and one of the things we are actually trying to do is to work with dining halls to have better vegan options available that taste the same and are high quality and nutritious. But beyond that, I want to make the case that do you think it's harder for you to be vegan, or do you think it's harder for animals to be exploited the entire time and then get killed or after? Do you think it's harder for you just to make a simple dietary choice, or do you think it's harder for those animals to go through that?
Definitely the latter.
So, you know, I give you another example. Like, imagine you had some like trash in your hand, right? Would you just trash and litter, or would you walk extra 50 feet to find a trash can, despite the fact that the former is easier?
In that case, yes, I'd walk the 50 feet or whatever it is, yeah.
So why not walking extra 50 feet to save a living being? So what I'm trying to say, so there are two misconceptions here. One of them is that vegan foods is not delicious. I literally eat everything I used to eat, like lasagna, pizza. There is vegan cheese. And because you're not vegan, you just don't even know that these options exist. We literally, yesterday, we just got vegan sushi here at UT, right? So that's the first thing. But more importantly, I want to say that even if you didn't get the option that you were looking for, there is merit to stand up for your values, right? And not just act based on peer pressure and what other people are doing, right? You told me that your values are to protect animals and not harm them, right? Why not standing up for your values? So all I want to say at the end of this is know that when you leave today, at your next meal, you can just do a little research and find out where to go. You have bodily autonomy, right?
Correct,
You
yes.
can decide where to go. You can pull up your phone and find vegan options, and there is tons of vegans here. They all manage to do that. Do you think you are not as talented as the rest of them? I think you are, right?
Right.
So for you, just pull up your phone, find the right option, and you just go there. If you decide to eat animals, those animals have no bodily autonomy. They've put in that situation against their will. They're being abused because some people like you decide not to help them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.